My name's Joe Field. I run Flying Colors Comics and other cool stuff in Concord, California. We've been here since 1988. Why comics? Why comics? My origin story of getting into the business, the why comics. I was in radio before opening the shop. Worked for a radio station about 65 miles from here in Stockton called KJOY AM, one of the last of the top 40 stations. And while I was there, it was Marvel's 25th anniversary, and I thought, you know, Marvel had given real cities to all of their heroes, except the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four were from a place called Central City, California. Arcane history from the Marvel comics, but it's true. And so I thought, let's petition Marvel to have them change it to Stockton, California, which is the most central city in California.
We no longer want it to be a fictitious city. We want to put it in the real world with the other big cities and get Stockton on the map.
Field says no other city matches the description of Central like Stockton, and he's going to prove it to Marvel editors. Assistant sales manager for a local radio station and a comic collector, Field says he's an avid reader of Marvel comics. Other fans have joined in his pursuit of comic fame for Stockton. More than 300 have signed a petition to be sent shortly to Marvel chiefs.
When the proclamation was delivered from Marvel to the city politicians on the steps of City Hall, Stan was there. He said, you know, kid, you did a really great job on this promotion. And I said, well, Stan, if you ever need a PR guy, just give me a call. Never thinking anything like that would happen. But a few months later, he called and said his wife's first novel was being published, which was a steamy little romance called The Pleasure Palace, about love on a cruise ship. Something I was not very familiar with, let me tell you. I spent the next 3 months or so talking to Stan and his wife Joni on the phone every day, telling them what interviews we were getting, what I was working on, and that sort of thing. San Francisco Bay Area retailers saw what I was doing. They were also starting a convention in the area, which became WonderCon. They hired me to do advertising and promotions for WonderCon. Within 2 years, I was a co-owner of the convention, and that's what led me to looking around to see what was going on in comics in the Bay Area, and I'm from this area, so it was always my desire to move back closer to home. 2 years later, Flying Colors opened. The Why Comics was sort of a roundabout kind of thing, but I'd been a fan since 1967. Here we are more than 50 years later, and I'm still playing with the funny books. When it came to opening the shop, I knew I needed to do something a little bit different. There was pressure on me because I'm from a family of high achievers, number one, and I wanted to do things absolutely the best way we could do them. I decided to use my wife and my 3 young daughters at the time as our sort of marketing research team. And what we did is we went out and shopped a lot of different comic book stores all over California, and then other kinds of stores. And after we would shop those stores, we'd get back into the station wagon, and I'd ask them questions. What did you like? What did you not like? What was appropriate? What would you do differently? And I'm asking this of a 4, 6, and 8-year-old, along with my wife. The insights I was able to get allowed me to be able to open a shop that, well, I knew I was going to get all the fans to come in. I knew that if you opened a store with comics, that you'd find comics fans. But I wanted the store to be accessible and open to everyone. One of our regular shoppers is a retired teacher. What he does in his retirement now is he teaches other teachers. During the summer, he will take them on field trips around the Bay Area to cultural landmarks. 3 years ago, he decided that we were a cultural landmark, that Flying Colors was a cultural landmark in the Bay Area, and wanted these teachers to be able to bring comics into the classroom and do it in an informed way. So he brought his class of, at that point, 30-plus teachers out here for me to talk to them about bringing comics into the classroom, what lesson plans they could do. It's kind of cool to think that someone saw us as a cultural landmark and something that's important enough to make sure that new generations of kids coming into schools are going to learn about comics and learn about what we do here. I think businesses like Flying Colors all over the country, all over the world, add something. They add, you know, look, we've got characters all over here, but we add a lot of character to our community with what we do. It's a very unique, very different kind of a business, but it's one that adds a lot of happiness to a community. And when people are leaving the shop on their visit, I want them to be thinking of the next time they're going to come here. that they've had such a good time here that when they leave the store, they're already thinking about what happens when they come back. Anything that goes out of here that's reading material, we want it read, you know, and we hope that we have a higher percentage of stuff that gets read leaving here than other comic shops. When people get into it thinking that it's rare, collectible, or whatever, they're always going to be disappointed. Old comic example here is years ago, I brought in a little, someone sold me a collection of comics, and one of them was this comic from the early 1940s. And it was in kind of beat up condition. And so I looked at it and I priced it according to the guide, and I put it up on the wall, and it was $50. It sold to a guy who was so excited to get it. He said, "I can't believe you got this for $50. Oh, this is great." And so he bought it from me, and about 3 weeks later he came in and he said, "Man, that was the best thing I could have done. I bought that comic for $50 and I was able to sell it for $500. I went, "Hey, good for you. I made my money on it, you made your money on it." About 3 months later, he comes in and he goes, "Man, I'm so mad." I go, "Why?" He said, "You know that comic I bought from you for $50 that I sold for $500? Well, the guy I sold it to sold it for $2,000. I could have held on to that. I could have." Okay. If you're thinking about just the value, you're never going to be happy. Enjoy the experience, enjoy what's in the comics, what their initial intended purpose is, and that's to entertain, and you're going to be good for the long haul.